Hi, Doug here with a Full Earth Workshop. We are riding the rails with a vintage Lionel Caboose construction couple of episodes. This is episode number 2, where we are working on a working caboose. Yeah, they were kind of cool things that disappeared decades ago. We are creating a train with Union Pacific graphics. In the first episode, we were taking a bunch of parts laying around from post-war Lionel trains, taking the best of those and making a really cool caboose out of them. I really don't like to waste parts, so what I've done is cut up one of the caboose boxes. That particular cabin was broken, so I cut the sections out of it, made it into a cupola on the other. They have injection molded ladders on the side. We're going to go one better. We're going to create some actual 3D ladders that climb up over the top. We're going to do that with brass, which is always kind of fun. When you're working with brass elements that are very close together, like the rungs of a ladder, it takes some different techniques to get all of the joints done. So what I normally do is I take care of the major joints using a torch. Then I go in with a soldering iron and put in those individual rungs. Then you just use your files to go in and clean up those joints. You can see a surface ladder has been injection molded into the back of the caboose cabin. We're just going to leave that there as though it were just screwed into the wall, and we'll put this better 3D ladder on the outside of it. You notice there are some little stanchions that hold the wire rails into place. On the left side, I pulled out the wires and drilled a little larger hole in those stanchions to make it look like it was an original part. We'll put it in with cyanoacrylic glue and go on to the next task. In Lionel trains after 1945, you rarely saw handrails that were individual parts. They were normally just injection molded into all of the rolling stock. So we're going to take care of that right now and put rails on the sides that make sense. The whole idea on this caboose is that it's something that is pieced together over the years, because many of these cabooses lasted for decades and decades, and they would hammer pieces on and pull sections off, whatever it took, because this was really not a money-making piece of rolling stock. This was something that was just used by the crews to do their work. The hardware for American trains during the 20th century was evolutionary, so they would adapt to whatever technologies were available, and they would change their rolling stock. For instance, the cupola came about because the engineers had to be able to watch the train all the way ahead to see if anything was smoking or derailing or overheating. Once there were technologies in place that would show the condition of each car, and once air brakes were included, those roles changed to an odd mix of tasks like scheduling and switches and other maintenance duties. Another interesting reason that cabooses disappeared was because of labor organizations. It was a difficult job being an engineer riding on these cabooses. Family life fell behind because you could be on these things for days. So whenever an 8-hour day was agreed upon, the cabooses became less and less important. Originally, cabooses were built out of rolling stock, other boxcars and so forth, by the railroad company itself. Now, later on, different rail manufacturers started making them. But you saw quite a few of these that were just kind of thrown together from excess parts, which really made them interesting. Then around 1980-85, in the northeastern part of the U.S. where I was, you just stopped seeing cabooses. They were replaced kind of depressingly by a little blinking light at the end of a freight train. I saw one or two examples of these really cool portholes that were put in cupolas. They were rather rare, but they added a real cool character and kind of a I threw this together mentality to these. So I thought I would put that on. Also, you'll notice the trim is just a little bit off, and that's because these things were thrown together by workmen. One of the evolutionary technologies that came into use around the 30s was the use of radio cars. They could radio up to the front locomotive and let the engineers there know what was going on. And so I thought I would create one of these radio cars. This tower is built to look like amateur radio frequencies, a dipole antenna. And the hobbyist said, "Let there be paint in the air." And there was, and it was good, and everyone rejoiced. Here we are spraying the trucks. Look closely, they're really well made with a manual uncoupling device. One thing I enjoy about Union Pacific trains and rolling stock is they have that beautiful yellow-orange color that is contrasted by neutral gray. Just love that look, and the big Union Pacific that's outlined in red. We're going to get to those decals in just a moment. A very simple masking here. I decided to take the top section, make it gray. Lower 2/3 would be the yellow color, and I continued that on then in the tower and in the cupola. Same treatment here with the storage and equipment boxes. It's kind of fun when you peel off the masking tape. This scheme just comes alive with that bright yellow color. I'm using a very inexpensive masking tape from 3M. It's considerably cheaper than the Tamiya stuff and actually works really well. You want the tape with a very light tack adhesive. One really nice aspect of the late 40s, early 50s cars, they were all held together with screws, so you can modify them as time goes on. I think later on I'm going to do some weathering and also put some lighting in these units. I purchased a shell for an NW2 locomotive, and I'm going to make that into a Union Pacific as well. Luckily, decals for O-scale post-war Lionel trains are very easy to come by. I find mine normally on train sites or on YouTube, like these were found. These are Champ, very good quality. Here's a nice little set of safety and cupola warnings, and also a nice set of radio car decals. Sometimes I'm jealous of people that have real small fingers and hands because, when you got big meat hooks like I do, very difficult to put on some of these decals that are so tiny. What I have found works is dipping the decal in water, trimming it very closely around the wording, and then using a toothpick just to slide those things off. If you use a finger or a thumb, they just tend to break up. What isn't shown here is after these dry, I will use Microsol. Maybe we'll show that in a later episode. All right, the trucks are on. It's time for this car to meet its adoring public. Thanks for watching, guys. You are really appreciated for all the ones in the States and those hobbyists that are in the UK. I really love having you here. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time to hop on board. You never know what you're going to find next.